To all the wannabe cryptid hunters, stay the fuck out of my woods. Did you know that the self-proclaimed cryptid hunters are a thing these days? Turns out these online communities full of sick badasses who order combat gear on Amazon and drive out to supposedly haunted locations to explore and film themselves. Why am I ranting about this? Apparently some shithead has shared the location of the plot of land that's been in my family for generations. Now, do you think owning an entire patch of woodland would mean that we're rich? But in actuality, it's really costly to take care of. No forestry work can be done there, and our staff is constantly patrolling the area looking for irregularities. It's a dangerous job, and we've lost more than a few hirees in regrettable ways. Most of the time, when everyone's careful and meets the required procedures, everything goes over smoothly and the things in the forest are kept in check. I wish we could just fence the perimeter and be done with it, but due to reasons too complicated to explain right now, that's not an option. Plus, it's pretty lonely out here. You'd have to drive off the roads for half an hour to get here, so we normally don't have to deal with any unexpected visitors. There's a spot in my woods I frequent, a little clearing surrounded by tall trees and wild rose bushes. I always light a campfire there to sit and relax. Right now, the ground is frozen over and we've had a lot of snowfall, but I don't mind the chill. I do so love these pretty icicles hanging from the branches. The clearing is my refuge from everything. I'm not good with people, and day-to-day interactions exhaust me, so being by myself is something akin to an essential need of mine. Yesterday afternoon, I was hanging out in my usual spot when suddenly a voice called out behind me. "You! Turn around!" When I got to my feet, I found myself facing a young man of the very species I described earlier. Armed, cargo pants, combat boots, and a camel backpack. There was a small camera mounted to his helmet. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I asked, trying to keep my cool. He backed off, visibly puzzled. I thought you were some kind of ghost." "I'm the legal owner of these woods, and if you don't get off my property this instant, I will call the cops," I told him. "Why are you wearing a wedding dress?" he stuttered. "This is my private property. I could dance around stark naked if I wanted to. How on earth did you find this place?" The woods? I read about them online. Someone posted about there being creatures here, cryptids." "So you thought you'd go check it out?" I squinted at him. Something wasn't quite right with the guy, aside from him being crazy enough to show up here in the first place. I could sense something looking at him, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Just a hunch, but my gut instinct never misleads me. "Yeah, I'm a cryptid hunter. Or well, I don't hunt them per se. I guess I just haven't been all that successful yet," he admitted with an awkward chuckle. Here, I said flatly. I couldn't shake the weird feeling he was giving me. "You're still trespassing. Say, did anyone stop you on your way in?" "No, why? Is there someone else here?" How the hell had he gotten past security staff? There had to be a blind spot somewhere which he had accidentally come across. I decided not to let on how many safety procedures we had in place. Better not further pique his interest. "Nope," I lied, patting down my skirt. "Come on, follow me. I'll see you out." "Can't I just have a look around? If there's something in these woods, you'd be safer if I took care of it." I'm certain I was about to send him on his way a little bit more firmly when I realized it. There's a disturbance in his aura. Something has set its sights on him. "Were you followed here?" I asked sharply. "What? No, I don't think so." "Did you encounter anyone on your way?" "A man wearing his caftan crossed to left over right." "What's a caftan?" I ignored the question. "Did you maybe notice a flock of birds at some point?" "Yeah, sure. I mean, we're in woods." "There are no birds in my woods anymore," I said sternly. "You're in danger. Something here has been following you." What? Aren't you a cryptid hunter? Shouldn't you know?" "Well, I haven't had many encounters yet." The man was starting to look around, panicked. "You're trying to get a rise out of me, aren't you?" His trembling voice told me that he didn't actually believe that. "I'm most certainly not. Trust me. I can tell. I can always tell. You've gone and crossed a spirit." A spirit? So there's actual paranormal activity here, and you already knew?" "We need to get you out of here," I hissed. "Come on, help me pack up. Douse the fire." He followed my instructions while I hastily gathered my belongings. Then we took off running. I spurred him on, hoping to get back onto one of the beaten paths leading out to safety. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I knew my companion was so much more afraid. He had every reason to be, and deep down he knew. I didn't know what he'd expected coming here in search of a thrill, but this was certainly too much for him. What did you do? I panted, not daring to slow down. You must have done something to upset him. Did you try to fell a tree? I shot a rabbit earlier with my crossbow. I only wounded it though. It ran off on me. He gritted out in between gasps of there. Who is he? I really don't see anyone around. He can come in a lot of shapes. Oh, for crying out loud, I snapped when he tripped over a root and fell sprawling across the forest floor. I grabbed him and pulled him back up, grunting under his weight. He was heavy as fuck with all that gear on. The trees were starting to let up though, hope renewed. I steered the cryptid hunter towards the light, beckoning him through the leaves. Keep going, we're almost there. He wouldn't move. I gave him a bewildered frown. What are you doing? Keep running, you dumbass. You've been shitting me this whole time, haven't you? He asked sharply. There's nothing to run from, is there? Oh dear God. Keep running, I repeated. If you want to leave, you need to get out. Look, lady, I'm not gonna play along anymore. You nearly scared me shitless back there. I'll admit, that was a bit fun, but the fun's over. I'll get off your property. Sure, you could have just told me in a... He fell silent upon realizing that my eyes were transfixed on something behind him. It stood tall between the trees, its enormous branch-like antlers stretching into the foliage. Its head bore more of a resemblance to a skull of a deceased deer, bone exposed with bloodied strips of flesh hanging off it. Its body overall was unhumanoid, with rough, thick bark replacing its skin. Moss lined its back and unproportional long arms. Twigs and leaves sprouted from its wide shoulders. It glared at us, gleaming green eyes. The hunter slowly turned around to meet the creature's gaze. His face fell. Kneel! I breathed, sinking down and lowering my head. The young man didn't react at first. It's too late to flee, I repeated in a low voice. Kneel and pray for mercy. Finally, he dropped to the ground next to me. The leash proceeded towards us, his steps completely silent. I had only had a few close encounters with this beast, and I had prayed to not invoke his wrath ever again. I could only hope I wouldn't be punished for the explorer's transgressions. I thought we had an understanding, you and I. The creature's voice chilled me like an icy forest wind. I felt one of its long wooden fingers reach onto my face, tipping my chin up, forcing me to look up at it. Forgive us, my lord, I said quietly, holding back from the beast's red gaze. Then you will let me have this mortal. My eyes began to fill with tears. I couldn't bring myself to respond. I'll ask you again. Will you let me have this mortal? Please don't, I whispered. The man beside me started to cry sobs of fear, shaking his shoulders. Sweet soul, you do so hate carnage. I'll allow you to avert your gaze while I feast. Grasped by utterless hopelessness, I turned the other way, hugging myself as I shut my eyes. Gunshots rang out, their volume stinging my ears. The explorer was probably firing away for dear life, but the futility of defending oneself against this creature with simple bullets didn't go lost on him. Hey lady, do something, he started, tugging on my sleeve, but I brushed off his hand. Help me, I'm sorry, please, I'm sorry, everything, please just help me. I couldn't, not anymore. My blood ran cold when the explorer let out a rugging scream. He was dragged away from my side, his cries of agony mixed with the sound of crunching bones, flesh and muscle being torn, blood spattering. I felt it hit the back of my back, warm and sticky, staining my white gown. Tears were rolling down my cheeks, and my lower lip was bleeding where I dug my teeth into. By the time a horrific noise had finally died down, it felt like an eternity had passed. A satisfied growl rumbled beneath my back. Be on your way, darling, and don't bother my animals with your weeping. I left without looking back. At home, I turned on the shower to sit beneath and cry. I tried to tell myself that this cryptid hunter wasn't a great loss to the world, but even if his hobby of choice had frankly been dumb and ill-conceived, he'd probably still been a normal guy despite it all. That's what I thought about while I went around my property searching for traces of his entrance. I found his vehicle, a beat-up brown pickup truck, on the outskirts of the eastern side of the plot land. I disposed of it discreetly. Poor guy. He'd only wanted to see some action, though it could be held against him that he'd never look up what a leash he was. The first time I had encountered the leash flea, I had known what he, or rather it was. My mother had warned me, telling me that while benevolent at times, he and those of his kind had a habit of stealing young women. I held her teachings dearly, and I still do, seeing as I actually inherited our land from her, from her side of the family. She educated me about these grounds, about the dangers within them. Even before she died, I could take long walks through the woodland, setting up camp here and there, and basically spending all my free time in them. The winter around of the same time that I started wearing my wedding dress, I was taking a walk to check out the grounds after the first snowfall. A thin, delicate layer of pristine white covered the treetop and the meadows, offering a beautiful sight. All was well until I spotted a figure approaching me from beyond the tree line. I stopped in my tracks. Nobody was supposed to be wandering around here except for myself and my family's employees, so either this guy had gotten lost or he was one of those local entities. He drew nearer, stopping just a few feet ahead of me. Taking in his appearance, my heart sank. He was wearing a kaftan crossed left over right. His beard face bore a little trace of emotion, and he was holding a large cudgel. When he spoke, it was in a deep, snarling voice with a Slavic accent.
I've seen you in my woods before. You're the Haris, aren't you?
Yes, sir, I pressed out, swallowing the lump in my throat.
Then you must know who I am.
Yes, sir.
What am I to call you, Haris?
I hesitated.
I won't steer your name if you tell me,
he said as though he'd read my thoughts. I'm Fiona, I said breathlessly.
You're very pretty.
He tilted his head at me.
I could love you if your eyes weren't so lifeless.
He paused before shouldering the cudgel and walking onwards.
Send your mother my regards.
Throughout our time as the owners of the woods, Leslie has lured out quite a few of our security staff members into traps. He'd lead them astray, they'd get lost in the woods, and we'd find them drowned in the lake sometime later. He did bring back my father's dog when it ran off that one time though. Most of the time he's neither hostile nor benevolent, but he is territorial. He likes to remind us who's the one in charge, and of course he'd have my head if I dared to disrespect him by putting offense in his forest. He's not the only thing that might kill you if you enter our plot of land, and there are worse deaths than being eaten alive, believe it or not. You may have guessed it already, but this is a warning. Apparently my property has been frequented by explorers or cryptid hunters. The guy that got eaten obviously couldn't have been the only one. Someone made us public. We're already implementing more security. This post serves two main purposes. First off, if you happen to be the person who first discovered these woods and shared their location online, please take it down. You're doing more harm than good. I don't know how you managed to make it out of here alive and unseen by my staff, but you got lucky. For your own sake, don't come back here. Secondly, and this is for all the others, if you've heard of my or any other haunted woods for that matter, don't go exploring. It's not worth it. Since you're so curious to see what's in here, I'll tell you online, at a safe distance.